Hello there, my name is Daryl Stappard and I'm the Curriculum Lead for A-Level Economics at Huddersfield New College. What I want to present to you over the next few minutes or so is a taster lesson looking at a really big economics topic that we call inflation. So what I'm going to talk you through is what actually is inflation. I'm going to talk you through what causes inflation, what are the consequences of inflation are, and I've got some research questions that you could do to extend your understanding of this topic over the summer holidays. So let's get into it. Right, so first thing I want to say is inflation, all we're looking at is an increase in prices over time. So when you think about the products that you buy in the shops, every year the price tends to increase. And this process is called inflation. So what you can see here on this slide are different products that you will buy at some point across your lifetime. We've got houses, we've got leisure products such as eating out in fish and chip places or takeaways, we've got going to the cinema, we've got household essentials such as buying loaves of bread and pints of milk, and then we've got what we would call luxury products at the bottom, such as technology products such as TVs. Now what I've given you here is the price of these different products on average across our country in the year 1970. I've then given you the average price in 2022, and what you can see is all of these products have experienced inflation, and the really scary one is the big jump in house prices. So we can see, for example, the average house price in 1970 was just over £4,000. Today, if you went to buy an average house, you're now looking in excess of £270,000. It's a massive growth. Now, as a percentage increase, that is over 6,700% in price. Unbelievable increase in prices. Other things have increased in price as well, but not quite as significantly. So the price of a bag of fish and chips has gone up from 15p all the way up to £6.08. Then we have some products towards the bottom that have increased in price, but nowhere near as significantly. And I think the best example to give you is the price of a TV in 1970 used to be roughly £70. The average price of a TV today has jumped up to £400, but that has only increased in price by 471%. Now, when we look at prices or inflation, it's really important because when price levels increase, it becomes more difficult for you to buy products to have a good life. So your money will carry less value. Now, what we have to do when we look at inflation, though, we have to compare it to the average incomes that people receive. So in the year 1970, the average income was £955 per person per year. Today, it's over £31,000. Now look what that means. The average house price in 1970 was roughly 4 times what somebody would earn on average in a year. If we look to that multiplier today, it's now about 9 times. So what we can see then from this data is that for you guys, young people going forward, it's going to be very difficult for you to buy a house compared to what it was like for me. Now this topic of inflation then, it's massive at the moment in the news. And the reason why we've got inflation in our economy at the moment of 9%. So that means that products that used to cost £1 this time last year would now be 9% more expensive, so £1.09. And we can see that that's a really big problem because at the moment wages are only growing by 4%. So that is meaning that more and more people are finding it more difficult to buy the products they need to have a good life. And this is a massive global problem at the moment. So if we look at some different countries across the world, for example, we can see that diesel, so obviously fuel for vehicles, has increased in price in 1 year by over 53%. Chilies in Indonesia have grown in price by 28%. We've got chicken in South Africa growing in price by over 21%. And even in the UK, the humble sausage roll has increased in price by 4.5%. Now, even though we've got a lot of inflation in our economy at the moment, when we look at the global picture, we can see some economies have got much bigger problems than what we've got. So in the UK, price levels are growing on average by 9% per year. So we are this pink colour here. Unfortunately, we do expect by the end of the year to become a darker shade of pink. We're expecting it to go over 10% per year. Now, when we look on a global scale, though, we have countries such as Venezuela that have currently got inflation of 500%. That literally means a product that cost £1 last year would now cost £500 in their economy. A little bit closer to home, we have Turkey, with inflation of over 60% per year. And we can see certain African economies also experience really, really high inflation in their economies at the moment. Now, inflation then, it's all over the news at the moment. So it's really, really good now to explore what is causing price levels to increase so quickly across the UK economy. And each of these different pictures represent a different reason why we've got this big growth in prices in our country right now. First one is demand. Now, when we think back to all the COVID lockdowns, people had holidays cancelled left, right and centre. We couldn't meet up and have days out with family and friends. When lockdown ended, we all went crazy and demanded lots of holidays, lots of days out. So all the businesses that produce those products, well, they started to raise their prices. So ticket prices for aeroplanes went up, cinemas raised their prices, etc. Now, the more recent one is linked to these two different pictures here. What we know is across the world at the moment, there's lots of conflict going on, particularly the Russian involvement in the Ukraine. And that is creating big shortages of lots of natural resources. So gas and electricity bills are jumping through the roof due to global shortages of natural resources. And the one that scares me at the moment is petrol prices. So 5 years ago, I can remember putting petrol into my car. The price of a litre of petrol was less than £1. Today, it's well over £1.80. So 80% growth in petrol prices. We can also see from this that we've got a big growth in food prices. So we have lots of shortages of certain food products across the world. So the price you pay in Sainsbury's, Morrison's, Asda, etc. are now starting to increase. And then the final one, which is definitely worth mentioning, is the government, during COVID-19, they spent an absolute fortune on the furlough scheme. So some of your parents, for example, may have benefited from the government picking up their wages rather than becoming unemployed. Well, the government now are trying to claw back some of that money by raising some taxes. So businesses now have got higher costs of production and they're passing on them taxes onto their consumers. Now, just to wrap all this stuff up, what I want to think about are the consequences of inflation. Now, what I would say first of all is inflation will have the biggest impact on lower income people rather than wealthier people. The reason for that is lower income people already spend every penny that they earn. So when price levels increase, they find it more difficult to buy products. And this first image represents a ticking time bomb for millions of people in our country. Do they pay for food or do they pay to heat their homes? So when the winter kicks in and temperatures plummet, more and more people will struggle to either eat or heat their homes. The next one, we are forecasting as economists that in the next 6 months, there'll be a growing number of people that will fall behind with mortgage repayments and rent repayments. Well, that could mean that more people become homeless. Next one, millions of people are currently taking on board more debt due to the high cost of living. So credit card debt is shooting upwards. We've got more and more people taking on board overdrafts, maybe even taking out loans from banks. So big debt has been built up because of inflation. Now, the one that we are starting to see in quite a big way as well is more and more workers are going on strike. People tend to strike to earn more money. So when inflation's really, really high, people strike to get pay rises, and that creates big disruption across the country. Now, on the back of all this, everyone, these are some things that you could now do. So you could now think, right, okay, before I start an A-level in economics, what could I find out about inflation? And what I've given you here are some different websites that you could use to research inflation in a bit more detail. So you could, for example, look at, well, what else could cause prices to increase? You could research how might high inflation impact on you? And then finally, how do you believe economists try to tackle high inflation? So what do we do to try and bring down that rapid growth in prices? So everyone, thank you very much for listening to this presentation, and I hope to see you all in an economics classroom soon. Thank you.